The Congressional Fraud: Why They Had to Kill Lincoln. Information provided to H.E. Cardinal Mamberti and the Vatican Chancery Court regarding our claims March 6, 2005, January 19, 2023 in Seek. The Congressional Fraud is, in one sense, just another substitution scheme, in which our Congresses, both the Federation's Continental Congress and the Congress of the Federal Republic, were replaced by a British Territorial Congress. The problem for the schemers was, and is, that we kept all control of the land and soil jurisdiction firmly in the hands of our two congressional bodies. Those powers not delegated to our American Federal Subcontractor, the long-lost Federal Republic, remained with the Federation's Continental Congress, and the delegated powers related to our land and soil were the responsibility of the Federal Republic's Congress. The only way the Territorial Congress could assume any role related to our land and soil was by creating a presumed trusteeship in our absence, and that is exactly what they did. The first generation of perpetrators faced an additional problem. What they did was treason and breach of trust, as well as being fraudulent. If the people of this country found out, they'd be hung. They were highly motivated and concerned about that fine point, and Lincoln, while being concerned for his own neck, was also a loose cannon. Lincoln was popular with the British Territorials and the people living in the northern states. Every newspaper hung on every word he said, and every public appearance he made was a celebration in the days following Lee's surrender. Despite being one of the chief instigators in the original plot to run for election in a different and undisclosed presidential office, Lincoln did what he did for business reasons. He intended to call the actual Congress of the Federal Republic back into session, which would have forced the completion of the Reconstruction. Completion of the Reconstruction would have ended any custodial role for the territorial government and ended any presumption of trusteeship for the schemers. They would have lost control, however tenuously held, of our land and soil resources, which was always a big part of their goal. So Lincoln had to go, and General Grant had to agree to it. Lincoln was a rat, but he was only willing to go so far. Grant was a rat all the way, and not because he had a political bone in his body. For him, it was all about rewards for the Union Army and payback for the war. While Lincoln was trying to settle the bankruptcy of the United States of America, Incorporated, and hatching his brilliant greenback solution with his Secretary of the Treasury, Salmon P. Chase, Grant was war-weary and eager for some salad days for himself and his troops. Lincoln's greenbacks and 1040 bonds weren't spooling up profits fast enough for Grant and the Army. And Reconstruction would mean returning control to the civilian government. The Army would lose the nice little hegemony that Lincoln handed them with his General Order 100. When the Rothschild banks offered vast loans against the value of the newly acquired assets of the southern states, Grant was all for it. Lincoln was not. Another reason that Lincoln had to go. So both the U.S. Army and the British territorial government interests and yes, members of his own cabinet, including his Secretary of State, turned against Lincoln, and it wasn't even over the war. It was over the power and the money afterward. And blocking Reconstruction was key to it. Each one of the three original federal subcontractors, the American Federal Republic, the British Territorial Government, and the Holy Roman Empire's municipal government, had delegated duties and powers in international jurisdictions. The Americans had delegated powers on both land and sea. The British Territorial Subcontractor had other delegated powers at sea, and the municipal government subcontractor held delegated powers in the jurisdiction of the air. As a result, the members of the Federal Congress actually participated as members of three distinct different congressional bodies, depending on the subject matter being discussed and their own personal qualifications. They simply wore different hats as they changed subject matter and typically met on different days. Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday for land issues, Thursday for sea issues, and Fridays for air issues. So long as the Americans were in control, all the land jurisdiction issues were addressed by men who swore a unique loyalty to this country, but once the Federal Republic Congress was no longer meeting, the members of Congress acting as the Territorial Congress, and posing as our custodians, were only obligated as trustees. Trustees can do some very ugly and ill-advised things, if the donors don't even realize that they are donors, and are deliberately lied to and kept in the dark, so that they can't object to whatever the trustees are doing. Letting Lincoln serve as a martyr was less problematic than seeing the Reconstruction move forward in an organized and timely manner, and here, more than 150 years later, that work remains to be done. The difference now is that the American government is back in session. The Federation of States has received back the powers it delegated to the Federal Republic, and the state assemblies are able to act directly via roll call vote. The presumed donors have returned home from over the seas, as the present-day successors to the original Holy Roman Empire contracts put it. Yes, we've returned, without going anywhere outside our own borders, after being hijacked on paper by disloyal British Territorial Government Congresses, trafficked into their foreign jurisdiction via false registration processes, and encumbered by not one, but 3 phony clearinghouse certificates. Today, most of the purported members of the territorial and municipal congressional bodies have never actually entered the offices that they appear to occupy, because they have never completed the required written and recorded oaths of office. They are acting purely and only as a board of directors for the offending municipal corporations that are the subject of our claims. Any actions that these unseated members have taken, or appeared to take, adopting measures as members of a territorial or municipal Congress, are null and void. We wish for a polling of all purported members of Congress and the removal of all those who have not taken their written oath of office and recorded the same written oath of office in a known location easily accessed by the public. Subsequent to the results, we wish for an audit of the impact on the membership, quorums and votes to determine whether or not a valid vote of any Congress has taken place. We wish for the removal of any act that has not been issued with proper authority and in proper jurisdiction. We particularly wish for this examination process to focus on all acts of Congress entered in the federal record, which may or may not have met the requirements of valid passage and which may affect Americans and American businesses subject to some form or degree of federal regulation. We wish for a retroactive examination of the required oaths of office for all members of the territorial and municipal Congresses back to 1860 to determine the validity of the membership, quorums, and votes. We wish for a well-organized protocol and process for all members of all Congresses to be seated and recognized, which must include the receipt of the required oath of office and its recording and publication in a form that is easily accessible for public examination. This disarray and potential for deceit that has resulted from allowing one set of congressional delegates to perform in different capacities and jurisdictions was already part of the problem prior to the Civil War, but the perpetrators and the commercial interests exploited this potential to obtain unjust enrichment, non-consensual coercive power, and deliberately forestalled the Reconstruction process in breach of trust to keep and maintain purloined positions of authority for themselves. Issued by Anna Maria Riesinger, Fiduciary. The United States of America in care of Box 520994 Big Lake, Alaska 99653. April 27, 2023.